25th CPS Board of Education Health and Safety Committee. Happy Monday to everyone. I'm excited to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to do a quick roll call. And I'm going to start off with Vice President Jones, Board Member Moffitt, and of course, Board Member Weinberg is here as well. Thank you, Board Member Moffitt. Were you able to get that there?
Yes.
All right. First, I would like to remind those of you watching from home that you can locate the documents that we're going to be reviewing for today's meeting through Board Docs. It goes through the CPS website page where you were able to see the link for this call today, and then also our agenda is listed as well. And next, for the members of the public who wish to speak, whether you are here today or whether you are online, you can make sure to click chat in the button on the side. I think it's on the side. The chat feature will open up for you to request, and it'll be about 3 minutes that you will be able to do so. And please submit your name, your affiliation to the district, your school community, your topic, and your contact information if you would like a direct response for any questions that you might want answered. So our first agenda item will be about menstrual health. We have a very special person here today to present, and her name is Mary Mowney. Did I say that correctly? Very good. She is the program administrator from the Hamilton County Commission on Women and Girls, and I'm looking forward to hearing from her, especially as I feel like this topic has not truly been completely discussed or highly discussed, and it is a key topic that affects our girls in and out of school. So I'm going to go ahead and let you have the mic.
Thank you so much. As Board Member Mary Weinberg said, my name is Mary Mowney. I'm with the Hamilton County Commission on Women and Girls. And in my presentation today, we'll be talking about, next slide, a little bit of background on who the Hamilton County Commission on Women and Girls is, the history of menstrual equity and this initiative with our commission, the current findings from this commission in Hamilton County, and our request of CPS Board of Directors and this committee for next steps. Slide. So who is the Hamilton County Commission on Women and Girls? Well, in 2017, the commission was established to dismantle barriers that give rise to gender inequities, gender-based inequities, and to improve the economic position of all women in Hamilton County, to encourage public recognition of the contributions of women in Hamilton County, and to develop and promote women in leadership positions throughout Hamilton County. The commission consists of 20 women and 10 girls who are residents of Hamilton County and then are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners. Next slide. So what is the issue of menstrual equity and period poverty? I'm here to talk about today. So period poverty is the inability to access menstrual products. Period poverty affects menstruating individuals of all ages in communities throughout the United States. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the issue of menstrual equity and made it more difficult for students around the country, particularly students of color and lower income students, to access period products. Before the pandemic, schools, prisons, and public restrooms overwhelmingly failed to adequately provide pads and tampons, leaving a large sector of the population confronting a public health issue with profound consequences. Those include physical health risks, social and psychological effects, and for students in particular, educational fallout. As reports have previously showed, and the pandemic has emphasized, menstrual equity is a question of equity in a broader sense and is vital for the health and success of future generations. Menstruation is a biological norm and should be treated as an issue of basic hygiene. Basic hygiene needs are toilet paper, soap, and menstrual products. Next slide. The National State of the Period 2021 survey and report commissioned by Thinks and Period revealed that nearly a quarter of teenage students in the United States experience period poverty. 23% struggled to afford period products. 16% surveyed have chosen to buy period products over food or clothing as a result of the pandemic. And lastly, just over half of the students surveyed have worn products longer than recommended. Next slide. So as far as the issue of menstrual equity in Hamilton County, equitable access to menstrual products isn't just a matter of public health. It has long-term implications for education and self-esteem. A 2019 study found that more than 4 in 5 U.S. students have either missed class time or know someone who has because they did not have access to menstrual products. And then there is the burden of cost. Cost can total over $6,000 per menstruator in a lifetime for one menstruating person. That's not even taking into account multiple menstruating persons in one household. And that's also not accounting for the difficult task of quantifying the cost of absenteeism, disruptions, and productivity loss. Next slide. I want to give you a little bit of history of what we've done thus far as the commission. The Hamilton County Commission on Women and Girls has a history of working on this initiative. In 2021, the commission recommended to the Board of County Commissioners that menstrual products be readily available at no cost in restrooms of schools and public buildings throughout Hamilton County to preserve and protect the dignity of all menstruating persons in our region. These recommendations were also brought forth and presented to the CPS board. Since these recommendations, the Hamilton County administration has begun the process of purchasing dispensers that provide free menstrual products for all public bathrooms in the county's downtown locations. That includes the Justice Center, the county courthouse, Jobs and Family Services, the county administration building, with plans to expand to a broader geographic later this year. Next slide. So what are our current findings right now in Hamilton County? 1 in 4 teens in the U.S., broader picture, have missed class due to lack of access to period supplies. In Ohio, 1 in 6 women and girls between the ages of 12 and 44 live below the poverty line, federal poverty line. In Ohio, 64% of female students in public schools grades 7 to 12 attend Title I eligible schools, and 1 in 4 women in Greater Cincinnati will struggle to purchase period supplies due to lack of income. Slide. We also know that in Ohio, while the pink tax was lifted on period products, meaning that women in Ohio, or menstruators in Ohio, no longer have to pay sales tax on tampons or other menstrual products. These items are still not covered by WIC or SNAP and therefore have to be purchased separately. No CPS student or school employee should have to choose between food, medicine, rent, and menstrual hygiene. And no student should have to miss school, no adult should have to miss work, and no person should have to miss out on daily life because they are unable to afford the basic necessities they require. Next slide. Local organizations who are working on this topic to address it in Hamilton County include Tidal Babe, which is part of Sweet Cheeks Diaper Bank, who provides period kits to menstruators across our region, and Girls Health Period. Girls Health Period has a mission to enrich the lives of students in education, sports, and career by providing menstrual products, education, and underwear to menstruating bodies from elementary to college. They are already providing free products for distribution to 39 CPS schools. 14 suburban and private schools from elementary to college, several area foster homes, and over 100 schools outside of the tri-state area. Next slide. The relationships that they have formed within CPS have all been cultivated and maintained individually by Girls Health Period with leadership and resource coordinators within each school. However, turnover in staff at schools throughout the pandemic and now have resulted in gaps of service from Girls Health Period and of product availability for students and staff. Next slide. So, as a representative of the Commission, I come to you today believing that increasing access to products across Hamilton County and collaborating with community experts like Girls Health Period can address the gap in menstrual equity and the causes of it in our county. We're requesting that all CPS schools expand access to free period products within all girls, gender neutral, family, and employee bathrooms at schools throughout CPS. We also ask that you expand Girls Health Period's footprint to provide free menstrual products to all CPS schools, that's elementary, middle, and high schools, for distribution to students beginning in the 2022-2023 school year, and that the administration and leadership create a formal partnership with Girls Health Period to ensure a sustainable relationship and no longer disruption of gaps in service. That is my presentation to you today. Actually, I have one more slide. What are the benefits, right, of this to you and to your students? Through a formal and expanded partnership between CPS and Girls Health Period, CPS could demonstrate a state and national commitment in period equity by reassuring that all those in schools, including staff and students, are receiving quality products and ensuring students feel clean, confident, comfortable, and engaged in the classroom as they prepare for their future. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such an informative presentation. I'm pretty sure that we will have some questions or some comments from other board members or administration from up on the stage. Is there anyone with a question? Well, and then I'll go into my comments afterwards.
Please. I'll go first. Thank you so much. This is very informative. It's very timely. For obvious reasons, I understand the need for this. I do have a couple questions for you. When we talk about menstrual products, are we also talking about meds that go along with them? I know some young women experience extreme cramping. They've shared where they weren't able to get like ibuprofen and Tylenol, you know, the things that go along with the products. And then I have more questions, but I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, so that is not a current offering through this organization, Girls Health Period. I do think that it is a topic to be explored further within CPS, though, because you're right, the studies do show that a large part of absenteeism is related to those additional burdens or effects from having a menstrual cycle. So certainly I think that's an opportunity for education as well within staff. About having those things available to students and staff so that there is a way to address that as well.
Yes, that leads, it's a perfect segue into my next question regarding any training that might be available. I think sometimes the misconception could be that if young women are wanting to put their head down or wanting to, you know, the things prior to the cycle could be misconstrued as just you're being lazy. Is there any professional development or training that comes along with that partnership?
There is. So Girls Health Period does provide an educational training for staff. They also provide an educational training for students as well. That is not sexuality based. It is truly just health information so that they can understand their bodies. But certainly it is really more beneficial to, not more, but equally as beneficial to have staff trained on menstruation and how menstruation works, and certainly understanding the signs of menstruation and how to support those that are going through it during that time and before.
Absolutely. And my last question, I promise this will be the last one.
Yeah.
What would be an annual cost to provide the supplies to the district?
The annual cost would be $0, is my understanding. So Girls Health Period provides this partnership free of cost to area schools. This is a partnership. They receive donations through companies that are partnering with them, including our own Procter & Gamble that's here in Cincinnati, along with private donations of products and funding from individuals.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Wow. So Board Member Moffitt read my mind. I was actually going to ask that same question.
Great.
Thank you so much. Great minds think alike in terms of the cost. So it's nice to hear that there would be a zero cost to CPS in the district. Are there any other questions from anyone else?
Hi, nice to see you
Hi,
again.
nice
I
to
think
see you
we
as
were
well.
on a virtual call earlier this year looking
we
to
were.
scale the program. So thank you for sharing the facts. I know we've been in partnership with the Innovation Office to get out into more schools. So thank you for coming out
Wonderful.
today.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I heard you say in your presentation that the products are provided. I mean, so it's no cost. So what specific services outside of the products does your organization provide?
So the Hamilton County Commission is certainly just recommending that this organization be your provider of choice because we know that what they do is working. The cost or the process is, I'll tell you, is they bring products and education to the school. They usually work with a resource officer who sometimes not, gives the products to the nurse's office. They are also looking to change what that practice is. As we know, girls and staff are having to access the nurse when they're looking for menstrual products. As we know, during the pandemic, that meant they were also being exposed to those who were sick in the nurse's office. Could possibly be COVID, could be other things going on. What we are hoping is that schools would, and Girls Health Period is asking, is that products are now available in the restrooms where girls need them the most and have access to them. This is not an issue of being sick. You should not have to go to the nurse's office for something that is not a sickness. This is a biological norm, as I said earlier, and we're hoping that schools would recognize it as that.
Okay, so I just needed, I'm still not clear.
Sure.
Is there anything, so you don't have like a staff that, I'm just trying to understand the services and supports, again, that are offered outside of products. And as I understand it, we have it said 39 schools. And the other question is, do we know how much utilization? Do we know anything about how it's being used? And the 39 schools, I'm assuming it has to be including elementary because we only have a certain number of high schools. Mm-hmm. So we're going down to elementary schools.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. I can find out utilization. I don't know that offhand, but I know it's increasing. Okay. And the schools have been very open to Girls Health Period coming out, having the presentations, talking with them. Gotcha. Of course, there was a gap over the last school year a little bit, but they are very passionate about it, and I believe have been received fairly well. In addition to the products being in the nurses' offices, there are some advocates throughout the building that will have the products, and the young women know what individuals they can go to. In addition to them just, at this time, we don't have the types of machines that you would see in some public restrooms. I'm not saying we couldn't get there, but just at this time, as we work towards it being a little bit more widespread, there are advocates throughout buildings in our district.
And is it this program that we're working with in terms of what
so
we do?
Had
so
many,
we already have a partnership with them.
Yes, with the Girls Health Period, with P&G, we have talked several times with Commission on Girls and Women, gotcha. Yes.
So we're really just looking for an expanded partnership so that they have access, I think, to more schools within CPS.
And then I was just going to ask Mary if you could comment on the article that was written. I know we should have access to that. It should be on your board docs. It was the WVXU article. Can you just kind of sum that up really quick?
Sure. So I think the article was relaying that we, as the Hamilton County Commission on Women and Girls, had previously brought this issue to CPS, and that you all were going to work on, including this more on a top-down approach, so that organizations didn't have to work individually with schools to achieve, a broader footprint. And that had not happened at the time. Certainly this was, I think, an article that was potentially taken out of context in the way that our relationship was trying to advocate for broader receiving of that partnership. It was in no way to admonish CPS for not doing something. We certainly understood that COVID took over everyone's lives, and that became the number one priority. I think what we are hoping is just to shed light to this topic and say that it's still there and probably of a larger need even more now, and that we'd love to talk further about how we can support you in getting a broader footprint.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you for your advocacy
I got one more
and commitment.
Sure,
We have one
yes.
more question.
Yes. So, I'm excited about it, obviously.
Sure.
Obviously, we didn't have it when we were coming.
Exactly.
Right? So the thought of the partnership expanding excites me. Now, what doesn't excite me, and I never like being the devil's advocate, but I'm going to be the devil's advocate. So what is the term of the partnership? How long do you all anticipate being in operation? Because a lot of times what happens is the cost of it ends up in our pockets. And it's not that we don't value it, but when you think about the scheme of things, we want to be able to maintain it and sustain a program. So we don't have any idea, is this program going to go away in 2 years or 5 years or never?
Right. So Girls Health Period has been around, I believe, for at least 5 years. That being said, certainly there are things going on in the Ohio legislature, actually, to advocate for period products being covered in all school systems that we hope certainly they've been introduced. And we as the commission, and I'm hoping others, will advocate for those being passed. So that certainly at the state level and certainly at the federal level, that these are products that the cost of those are already built into the budget, and that we can advocate in that way, so that it doesn't become an incurred cost later on down the road, even if this organization goes away, that those would be covered by other entities. Yes.
And Board Member Jones, just to kind of clarify with the Girls Health Period, they have been around for about 5 years. And I know you were stating that sometimes these organizations may come and go. And I think that would just be also maybe an opportunity to get some further information from that particular group as well. So thank you for your Girls Health Period.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
Thanks
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
I do have one more question.
Yeah.
This is a hot topic.
I know, I love
Okay.
it.
Well,
Woo.
just along the lines of Board Member Jones, is it possible to do some assessment on, and not names, but quantity of how much has been distributed
Absolutely.
monthly or yearly? I'd like to look at I'm just the data.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I kind of want to know that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to submit any other information on their behalf or have them submit directly around what they've been able to provide thus far.
Yes, I think you bring up a good point with that. And I think that you stated that you would be returning some information to us as well. You didn't have it, but you would look into
information.
Yeah, I think they are able to bring that data pretty quickly.
Okay.
So I think I can have them
Great.
follow up with that.
That sounds great.
That'd be perfect for me.
Great.
I just want to know, about how much are we distributing? How many training sessions have we? I really just would like to know.
Sure. Yeah.
The success of it. I think.
Well, and I think the opportunity certainly is, as I said, is that there are generations of menstruators in one household. And so the opportunity to support families
Great.
would be an additional opportunity as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yes. Thank
Great
you so
job.
much. Thank you.
I appreciate
Thanks so much.
you. All right, up next we have our government liaisons. Mr. Kearney and Mr. Glover will come forward to give us some key information about some bills that are currently going on at the State House and really making sure that we are informed and we are knowledgeable as we are moving forward.
Madam Chair and members of the and Safety Committee, and to the superintendent. Yes, it is.
What?
You want to go first? Okay, so you have in front of you a report, and Phyllis is absolutely fabulous for making sure that each of you receives it. There's a blurb about the state superintendent search, and there's the list of the candidates there. Also, the state school board has moved around some of its committee members. And then on the following page, there's an announcement about Governor DeWine taking a stand with approximately 2 other governors and fighting a proposal by the Biden administration to limit the number of charter schools created. And so wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. And then additionally in the report, there is a description of House Bill 616, which has gotten a lot of coverage in the media. And that bill, introduced by Wojcik and Representative Gene Schmidt, who is from our neighboring county, Claremont County, it would prohibit public and non-public schools from teaching or providing training that promotes or endorses diverse or inherently racist concepts, specifically divisive or inherently racist concepts include 1, critical race theory, 2, intersectional theory, 3, the 1619 Project, 4, diversity, equity, and inclusion learning outcomes, 5, inherited racial guilt, and 6, any other concept that the State Board of Education defines as divisive or inherently racist, prohibits school boards of education from selecting any textbook, instructional material, or academic curriculum that promotes divisive or inherently racist concepts. So that gives you an idea of that bill, because I know it's been in the media a lot. George, do you want to go through some of the bills, or do you want me to? Okay. So some bills of note: House Bill 117. I just want to bring that to your attention. That's by Representative Brinkman, who you know is a representative in Hamilton County, and it talks about the school district mergers. George has some updated information about that he just received this afternoon, so he'll share that with you. House Bill 333, which was just had a hearing earlier this month to require the Department of Education to make recommendations for a job description for school counselors. So it would be kind of a top-down and something that would be shared at all school in all school districts. Also introduced recently House Bill 554, which requires the State Board of Ed to issue non-renewable 2-year temporary educator licenses when needed. And then House Bill 606, which was introduced by Byrd and Ingram. As you know, Representative Ingram used to be a member of this board, and it requires public and chartered non-public schools to create an individualized seizure action plan for each student who has an active seizure disorder. Then turning to the better chamber, the Senate, there is Senate Bill 240 by Senator Peterson, the merger of one or more community schools into a community school network. I've done a lot of research on trying to define what a community school network is, and I still don't know, but by next month I'll find that out. And then Senate Bill 306, Senator Brenner and we have to pay attention to this because he chairs the committee, requires the superintendent of public instruction to establish and administer a program providing tutoring and remedial education services to students in public and chartered non-public schools. So those are some things of note. Okay, George has some information about the goings on at the State House, and then I just want to talk a little bit about another piece of information that's included in your packet. Okay, George.
Thank you, Eric. And thank you all very much. A few additional, if you will, political or legislative footnotes on behalf of House Bill 117, sponsored by State Representative Tom Brakeman. That bill would have obviously a direct impact on schools like CPS. We brought this to the attention before on behalf of the school district. While the bill is still in the hearing stage before the House Education Committee, one of our own, State Representative Catherine Ingham, is a member of that committee. We've been in touch with her about that bill. And I would urge CPS, to the extent that they feel it might be helpful, to actually offer perhaps written or oral testimony on behalf of that bill, at least have it on file, on the record, as this bill continues to go through the legislative process. Stepping back for a moment, we also have to keep in mind the legislative time frame that we're working on now in the Ohio General Assembly in 2022. They're currently on what they call spring break recess right now. They'll be coming back in early May and working rather intently through the months of May and June, till they leave again for their traditional summer recess, or some people might say their election recess. Come back in the fall, probably October, November for a few sessions, and then a very intense session after the election called the lame duck session. This is a bill we want to keep a close eye on, so it doesn't necessarily get through normal legislative process. It may end up becoming part of some other bill during the so-called lame ducks session as well. So again, I bring this to your attention that we're keeping a close eye on it. We have friends who are on the committee that represent CPS, and we may want to at some point offer some testimony on behalf of that, part of the written record. Secondly, another key member of our state delegation from Hamilton County, who we've talked about before, is State Senator Bill Blessing, a Republican from Western Hamilton County. He chairs one of the key Senate subcommittees that will deal with public financing, public education financing, going to 2023. We've been in touch with him. He would like to stay in touch with you as well. He actually will reach out, I think, to your treasurer, Jen Wagner, as he has in the past, and maintain some dialogue with her on different financial formulas or scenarios that might come forward during this year for impact next year. Realizing any change in state funding formula won't become really apparent until the next State of Ohio operating budget, which will be introduced early 2023. But during that process will become, if you will, an opportunity for any future changes in the state funding formula. I'll leave it at that at this point and kind of pause to see if any questions on those 2 points.
I have a question.
Please.
I have a couple
By all
questions.
means.
I want to get into 327 versus 616, but for the people that are listening and for myself, can you expand on what House Bill 117 means and what the impact of that is? Because I'm just going to read it for people that are listening. It says to repeal Section 3311.242 of the revised code and to repeal Section 6, 7, and 8 of Senate Bill 89 of the 133rd General Assembly regarding school district territory transfers and to declare an emergency. The last hearing was April the 5th. So what does that mean and what impact would that have on our district and why should people be concerned?
That's a very good question. And basically what it will allow various homeowners associations or individual homeowners to appeal to become part of a school district or to take themselves out of a school district. This has special interest to CPS because Representative Brinkman has championed other homeowners that are currently involved in the Indian Hill School District who have an interest in leaving CPS and becoming part of that school district. Thus far, it hasn't happened, and while this bill would not directly impact CPS or any other adjoining school districts, it would provide the precedent for that to occur going forward.
Thank you.
The property tax question stands by itself. And when they say emergency bill, that means the bill would go into effect immediately instead of the usual 90-day time period that most bills go through.
Go ahead. That was a good question. Thank you, Board Member Moffitt.
Board Member Jones?
Well, no, I said that was a good question for Board Member Moffitt, and now it's up to you.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to follow up on Dr. K's comment because we have gone through this before. And there was, around that time, there was movement across the state. So we followed, as a member of the OSBA trustee board, we got information on a regular basis about which areas. So areas all over, it's like a trend. So Brinkman, who was known to jump on trends kind of thing, and I said that, you didn't. But, in the early days of this kind of process, they were losing this battle. And it was being found that it was, discriminatory or whatever. But in essence, that's what it is, because it essentially takes away the wealthier communities. And we have, so within, we are a district that has pockets of wealth and all that stuff. And so I can see this becoming bigger, and we do need to keep our ears to the grind on here. And I would be interested, I wrote down here, I would be interested in us at the appropriate time to do some sort of resolution on it if we could.
Pardon me, this is clearly a trend, as you noted here. And I suspect if this bill doesn't pass, we'll see future bills reintroduced again. So I think at some point we may want to go on the record and offer something in writing, my suggestion.
And I may have had that wrong. It may not be Amberley. It may have, no, we don't have Indian Hill. It was Amberley. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
That's right.
So I'm sorry.
I have more questions about the other bills, but go ahead.
Thought you were going to say something else, but if you aren't, we'll go over here.
So I would like, again, for people that are listening in and myself included, you talk about the differences between 327 and 616, so that people are aware of what the differences are and then what the two bills are talking about, and why should we be concerned or at least paying attention to House Bill 616.
Great. I get the hard ones? Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay.
You can tag team it, that's fine.
Okay, so these bills are in response to critical race theory, which is a national discussion that people are having. 327 is Grindel and I forget the other co-sponsor. Do you remember off the top of your head?
Fowler.
Oh, okay. So I would say that they have a good amount of say or sway inside the House caucus. I mean, they're not in leadership, but still they're very influential. And then 616, which is introduced by Representative Schmidt, who's here locally, I think I think why people are so alarmed about it is because it provides a definition of exactly what they're talking about. And those were the points that I read earlier.
Okay.
And so she and Lochick describe it in detail, or not in detail, but I would say provide more detail than 327 did. So that would be.
So another point I would offer, again, that I mentioned earlier, overarching all this is the fact that this is an election year in Ohio. There is going to be a shortened or abbreviated legislative session. So while these bills might garner a lot of publicity and a lot of attention, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to move through the Ohio General Assembly. Again, we've got a fairly short 2 or 3 months ahead of us, and then a long break, and then a short period in the fall, post-election. So I think it's always important to keep in mind what year we're talking about, how long that legislative session is going to be.
We do have, I don't know if you've seen it, it was sent sort of at the last minute, House Bill 616, a resolution in opposition. Okay.
I do.
Yes.
We do. I just wanted people that are listening to understand what it is. And I know one of the biggest differences between Ohio and Florida is that it talks about curriculum. And then it just seems a little bit more piercing negatively here in Ohio. So we just need to stay attentive. For sure.
I know we don't have a lot of time, but I keep coming up with stuff. But these are hot topics, and people can describe it however they want. The culture wars, we all know it's about politics. I do think there has been some expression from people, who we work with, who are not really interested in drawing attention to us. Like, I think it might be okay, they would be okay with us submitting a resolution. But if we decide that we wanted to really do something a little more proactive, people are saying, well, we don't want to draw attention. And I don't know if you have a perspective on that in terms of how effective do you think, number one, a resolution is? Does it just go on file and it's in their packet and they read it? Or how much power does that really carry? And if we decide that we want to push it a little further, what would be the necessary steps for that? I know.
Let me take one approach to your question, and that is, I think in those very specific oriented bills, like we talked about Representative Brinkman's bill, that can have a direct material or financial impact on a school district like CPS. I think it's a worthwhile effort to engage in that specific bill. Either meet with the legislator, meet with other area legislators, offer testimony, because you have a direct material impact of what the financial outcome could be for that school district. For the more broad public policy issues like we're talking about here that are pervasive across many school districts, that's sort of your call, your judgment. Do you want to do that? How impactful will that be? But I always try to focus in on what bills are going to really directly impact you as a school district, especially on a financial bottom line basis.
Then I would just add that the resolutions that you do have an impact. So if Cleveland School District or I don't know, Lima, for instance, had a resolution that they sent to my office when I was in the Senate, I paid attention to it because it influenced the debate. Now, did it mean as much to me as CPS? Because that was a district I represented? No, but it still influenced it. And particularly, I think, because CPS, because of its size and its history of innovation, is impactful or influential, I think, around the state. So that would be another factor that you should consider, I think.
Now, I do have a question about a bill that we have not discussed, and I'm just curious about House Bill 105, April being Child Abuse Awareness Month. I'm just kind of curious about that. House Bill 105. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I didn't. So I can read it to you. It says, to age-appropriate student instruction in child sexual abuse and sexual violence prevention and in-service staff training in child sexual abuse prevention. It said that it was passed in the House and the Senate primary and the Secondary Education Committee, but I wanted to hear a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so that's by Representative Lips and Representative Kelly. Representative Kelly, as you know, is part of the Hamilton County delegation.
Yes.
It passed the Ohio House and is in the Senate Primary and Secondary Committee. It has not moved from being assigned a committee. So Representatives Lips and Kelly have not had an opportunity to present sponsored testimony to the Senate. It may be one of those bills that is incorporated into kind of an omnibus bill at the end of a term. I would imagine that there are supporters in the Senate for this bill, but right now it's kind of in limbo.
Thank you. Yep, you can go ahead. You're up next. Thank you.
Can I touch on that bill one more time?
Sure.
What's interesting about this particular bill is that it is a bipartisan bill. Scott Lips from Warren County is the Republican state legislator who chairs the House Health Committee. Of course, Bridget Kelly from Hamilton County. So it's one of those rare bills that have a bipartisan co-sponsorship, which may in fact help it or enable it to go further in the Ohio Senate.
Okay, thank you. Interim Ahmad?
And
Yes. I just want to more so talk directly to the board about SB 145, and it's the revision of the report card, because that will be coming out in the next few months.
That was going to be my next question.
Yes, so just building understanding, awareness, especially with our community, because there are some changes, and then with trying to pass a levy. Most people get their information from our school and how we are doing through that local report card or state report card.
If I could offer, I'm not trying to take it, it's like committees, we need to talk about where things like this go.
Right.
But I would like to offer that we maybe do an update in the Student Achievement Committee, because that we do have an item on our agenda about the report card. So we could just kind of merge that, and
That
then
sounds
I'm
good.
happy to bring it back to this committee for updates.
I appreciate it. Well, I think, do you have?
Can I add one more political
Yes.
footnote?
Yes.
No discussion about the Ohio General Assembly could be held without some discussion about something that's been in the papers
Okay.
and the media throughout the last several months, and that would have something to do with state legislative maps. They have attracted a lot of attention and will continue to attract a lot of attention as well. We're now in our fourth set of proposed state legislative maps for the Ohio General Assembly. There has been no resolution yet. From what I can tell, is that if there are no further decisions made by the Ohio State Legislative session or committee that handles this, then they will fall to a federal judge panel with 2 Republican judges and 1 Democratic judge. The deadline for that is May 28th. If no further decision is made by that mission, the default will be going back to the third set of maps that were offered a couple months ago, and that will be the maps going forward for the Ohio General Assembly, probably to be held in an early August primary. However, that would just be for 2 years, so we could in fact go through this whole process again in 2 more years.
Thank you.
In other words, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yes.
Okay, can I make 2 more announcements? One,
Only 2.
We gave, it'll.
I'm joking with you.
So we gave you an article from Cleveland.com, which has, it says, 125 education bills wait in the Ohio legislature. There are 125, but, as George indicated earlier, not all of them are going to see the light of day. But this just gives you an idea of how complex following education bills can be. So I wanted to make sure that each of you had it. And then second announcement is we wanted to make sure that we thank Krista Boyle. She's been great to work with, and I think she's departing in another week. So we want to make sure we acknowledge her.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys did a wonderful job. Thank you. Oh, yes. The article should be on board docs as well. Yes, everything is there. So our next item will be child abuse prevention with Carrie Bunger. Is that correct? Thank you. The Director of Positive School Culture and Safety. So you are up. You can stay there if you want, or whatever you want to do. We're going to be easy today.
Just today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Happy Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Yes.
And I'm happy to share an update in terms of child abuse prevention programming and supports that are here at Cincinnati Public Schools. I am Carrie Bunger, Director of Positive School Culture and Safety. Next slide, please. It's important to recognize, reach out, and refer before any problems escalate to life-altering levels, such as suicide, violent attacks, abduction, or the worst-case scenario. Behavior that isolates a target is critically important for school professionals who are mandated by law to report suspected child abuse. In many cases, students living with abuse have been conditioned by their abusers to believe that no one can help them, and school professionals can be their only hope. Child abuse is an extremely serious topic and one that many educators will address at some point throughout their career. With 5 to 25% of students experiencing some type of abuse or neglect each year, teachers are often the de facto reporters of child abuse suspicions. School professionals are at times in a position to identify and report such abuse. Child abuse also manifests in various behaviors affecting a child, including neglect, verbal, emotional abuse, physical abuse, as well as sexual abuse. Next slide, please. Ohio is ranked 30th in the rate of child maltreatment in the United States, with 12.4 children out of 1,000 as subjects of abuse. Pennsylvania is ranked first with 1.2 children out of 1,000 as subjects of abuse, and DC is ranked last. Child abuse is related to many other mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders. Children who are abused or neglected are more likely to be arrested, commit violent crimes, or to be arrested as adults. Each year, approximately 1.5 million children become victims of abuse and neglect in the United States. More than 4 times that number, 6.6 million children, are reported victims, but investigations did not yield enough proof of abuse or neglect. Amazingly, even more abuse and neglect goes unreported. Studies show that only 1 in 10 incidents of abuse is actually confirmed by social services agencies. Next slide, please. The abuse cases can come in the form of neglect, which are the majority of the cases, followed by physical abuse, sexual abuse, or psychological maltreatment. Next slide, please. In response to the need for child advocacy, Congress passed the Child Abuse and Prevention Treatment Act in 1974. This law mandated that school personnel and other professionals report child abuse. Since that time, all state legislatures have incorporated laws requiring reporting of abuse and neglect, of course, including Ohio. Child abuse laws state that these reports do not require absolute proof. Rather, they must reflect reasonable cause for suspecting or believing it has occurred. Next slide. So most sources of reports come from education personnel, legal law enforcement, social services staff, and medical personnel. In fiscal year 2010, 3/5 of all reports of alleged child abuse or neglect were made by professionals. The most common report services or sources were education personnel, followed by legal law enforcement, social services staff, and medical personnel. Next slide, please. The 4th National Incident Study of Child Abuse and Neglect showed that public schools report more cases of child abuse and neglect than any other institution at 52%. These findings reflect the central role school professionals play in identifying children who are abused and neglected. Educators play a unique role because they have access to children and expertise in child development. Providing educators with the tools to identify, reach out, and refer in cases of child abuse and neglect can help prevent or minimize the damaging effects of these violent behaviors. Next slide, please. In terms of warning signs, you might notice indicators such as anxiety, depressed mood, eating disorders, or substance abuse among students who have been abused. As you can see, there are various different warning signs, and from a practitioner standpoint, I can tell you when you see major changes, both in mood or eating, whether it's eating a lot or stopping to eat at all, from depressed mood or very happy mood, or just major mood changes, those are indicators that something might be going on. Next slide, please. We know that educators are mandatory reporters. They are not mandatory investigators, they are mandatory reporters. As an educator in the state of Ohio, according to the Ohio Revised Code, we must report knowledge or suspicion of child abuse to the local Child Protective Services Agency. For us, is 241 Kids. Such reports, which can be made anonymously, should be made following our school district's policies and procedures. Next slide, please. In terms of Cincinnati Public Schools, we are committed to staff training in child abuse prevention and mandatory reporting, and then I'll also share additional resources that we utilize as well. So you can see across the progression of time that we have safe schools training in child abuse and mandatory reporting. We make sure that all employees or all new CPS employees receive that training, and it's on a rotating basis through safe schools. Next slide. Additional prevention efforts, we have our wonderful school social workers that connect families to community resources for support in the space of prevention. We have community partner presentations on safety, often by COCA, to students in schools. We have led professional development for staff members in child abuse and neglect, in addition to the Safe Schools training, including trauma-informed care for educators. And we monitor self-harm statements on district devices. In terms of student learning, in addition to the presentations within schools, teachers went through the curriculum with our science and health manager, and I've identified lessons within the health curriculum that align to the state law requiring that students kindergarten through 6th grade receive instruction in what they call personal safety and assault prevention. So that work is ongoing, but they're aligning the curriculum in that space in order to address those areas of explicit instruction in personal safety and assault prevention. Next slide. In addition, during the pandemic, CPS partnered with JFFC, stands for Joining Forces for Children, as well as our Children's Services in JFS in order to create CPS de-stress SEL videos that we have pushed out and continue to have in support of parents, again, from a prevention standpoint. We co-created a child abuse prevention and mandatory reported training that is still available on the Joining Forces website, and then a parent conversation guide that was created during the pandemic because teachers were struggling with if I see something but I'm not certain, of course I understand I'm a mandated reporter, but really I just want to be able to talk to parents about what's going on and how can I have those conversations over Zoom or over a Google Meet. And so the parent conversation guide was made again in a proactive way where teachers could feel like they had prompting questions to check in with parents as they popped in to conversations during the pandemic. Next slide. I would be remiss if I did not thank the community partners that are listed here that continue to help us keep kids safe: Cincinnati Children's Hospital, Joining Forces for Children, and JFS. And that concludes my presentation on child abuse prevention.
Thank you. A couple of questions. First, can you elaborate a little bit on the partner? I don't think I'm aware of this particular partner, Joining Forces for Children.
Joining Forces for Children is a group out of Cincinnati Children's Hospital in the Marison Center, and they provide prevention and trauma-informed care. And they have separate channels. They have an early childhood channel, they have a school age channel, they have a healthcare channel, and it's how can we promote trauma-informed practices. But it comes through Children's Hospital and Dr. Bob Shapiro.
Great, great. And then you mentioned in your slides the parent conversation guide for staff. Where could a staff member find that at?
So that's on the Joining Forces for Children website. It was co-created by both CPS and Joining Forces, but as a department, but the link.
And how would a staff be able to get to that if they didn't know that there was a link?
They would be able to access it.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, our internal website. Yes.
Okay. And my last question or comment, with April being National Child Abuse Prevention Month, moving forward for next year, what would be something that we could do as a district to kind of help expand on educating, possibly maybe putting some type of banner or something on our website, just stating, announcing that this is Child Prevention Month, and then also how can we connect with our CPS employees just to make sure that they're aware of everything that's offered so that they understand how to see the signs and recognize and know what to do. Anyone else for any questions or comments? Board Member Jones.
Just not asking for it today, but might be curious at some time in the future. And I don't know how much of this and because of HIPAA, and I don't want to see names, I don't, but I would be interested in knowing more about some trends. I mean, obviously during COVID, we would expect that there would be higher numbers of reports. So I'm looking at what are some of the patterns and trends, and are there particular populations of students that where we tend to find more reports with? And then also, what are some of the additional supports that these kids who we have identified as having had that traumatic experience, what kinds of supports do they get? And I'm familiar with Dr. Shapiro's work and know that they have done some things within our district around that. And so maybe that might be a good resource for us.
So I can share that I did a very cursory look at the log entries in our school, and there were 857 log entries that referenced either JFS or 2 for 1 kids. So that doesn't directly relate to child abuse, but that relates to, in the notes, there were 857 log entries where someone reached out to JFS or
But you make a really good point in terms of trying to see those numbers. And of course, obviously not seeing the names, but just kind of seeing how it's fluctuating or going up or down, especially during COVID as well. So thank you for that.
I'm more interested in knowing how we better support the kids, because clearly, you know, some of them, a lot of them would probably miss a lot of school and what have you. What kind of supports are in place for them?
And our social workers are really helpful in that space in coordinating care. There's always that challenge of will we know, or what information will we know, as you spoke to HIPAA versus FERPA, but our school social workers and their ability to connect families to care, be proactive, as well as make referrals to community agencies has been incredibly helpful.
Board Member Moffitt.
I just want to say thank you for the report. It's always good to stay informed and get some information. As heartbreaking as this topic is, it's definitely relevant. I am a little concerned, or not concerned, curious about, are we supporting our, well, 2 questions. How are we supporting our staff that have to report this? Because they are, you know, that's a trauma too. And is there any follow-up that we can maybe collect some qualitative data? Again, no names, but just how the scenario that they reported came back. I'm just remembering of a time when I had to report something for a student that I had, and I was a little traumatized, but it would have been really nice to have some follow-up for me. And then also some sort of continued documentation regarding that student, so that the next year or month that wheel didn't have to be recreated. There was a trail, and I don't know exactly how to do it, so I'm not talking about what it needs to look like, but I am talking about continuation of care for our staff, and then for the student, how does that look if we have it at all?
So that's a wonderful question, and it is traumatic, and I have sat with folks and next to them while they've made those phone calls, and because the student reported to them, they are the mandatory reporters, so I have them call, but I sit right next to them because it is it can be a very challenging thing. But you bring up a very important point, and also the fact that the person who makes the call can call back and ask, is it active, it's not active. There's only so much information they will give, but you can call back and ask, and I don't know that everybody knows that they can. So that you're bringing up 2 great points.
Okay, thank you. And let us know how to support that, because I think we need to do some more training for our staff and support for our staff. The training to report is there, you have that unlocked, but what happens after that you report that?
And the follow-up is really important. Thank you for a great presentation. I think we're going to move along, and up next we have the proposed Code of Conduct 2022-23 with Susan Bunty, our Assistant Superintendent.
Afternoon, we're going to process for review and then so next slide, please. So as you all know, we are working very hard to shift the culture from traditional discipline, which is more punitive, to one where we are reducing undesirable behavior. And within that, Obviously, a focus on restorative approaches and consistency in both consequences and in documentation. Next slide, please. So this work is led by Dr. Carrie Bunger, and you can see on the slide the various members of the committee. It's multifaceted intentionally. So there are teachers, administrators, our general counsel, members of the mental health community within our district, legal aid, and other collaborators within that team. Next slide, please. This year, the discipline committee really focused on uplifting our anti-racism and equity policies and making sure that we put those into practice. Also a focus on restorative practices, and then increasing and improving and clarifying language around hazing, bus expectations, technology, and school safety. So you have in front of you the draft of the student support guide. And I just wanted to walk through a potential calendar for activities with this guide and seek your approval before we go on. So we are asking respectfully that the board members of the Health and Safety Committee would take a look at this document, and if you have any edits, if you could please submit them via email to me by May 2nd. And I will email you all the list of these dates so that you have them. We then will look at your edits and then incorporate them and be in conversation with you so that then the document can go to the full board for review by May 4th. And then the full board will have an opportunity to participate in the same edit cycle. And then all edits will come back to the full board so you all can see what everybody else said by May 16th with hopeful adoption in the superintendent's recs on May 25th. So our goal is May 25th. I'm just going to be in all transparency. Sometimes we hit that and sometimes we don't, but our goal is May 25th.
Thank you.
And so just because we want to be able to make sure that we get this posted to our website in the hands of our administrators and our copies printed by that very first part of August. So it does feel kind of like a little bit of a gallop, but it's important work, and we are very interested in getting your feedback on it.
Thank
so
you.
That concludes my presentation on the Code of Conduct process.
Great, thank you. So you said May 2nd for
Yes,
this committee to get the edits back
Yes,
to you.
and I
Great.
will email you dates that we have.
Sounds good. Any comments by other board members? Yes, Board Member Jones.
I think it's a very proactive timeline. And you saw me smiling because the Code of Conduct, this book always generates lots of discussion and conversation. I would hope, and I'm going on record and saying that board members not micromanage the book, but in the detail and the language and all of that. But if there are broad concepts that we struggle with, find out what they are or put it in there. But it's really, we don't have to wordsmith it. And I kind of went through what I have one already. I don't know where I got it from, but I have one. So I just kind of glanced through it. It looks really good, but I really appreciate the work that's gone in it. And I know every year we seem to get stuck a little bit. So hopefully you'll reach that timeline goal.
Thank you. Yes, Board Member Moffitt.
So I promise to be short and sweet.
20 seconds.
Well, it's going to take me longer than 10. But this is great. I do have some suggestions, but they're not necessarily.
Do it during the edit.
They're not editable suggestions.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Roll with me. Just stay with me for just a second. So I got an opportunity to speak to some girls at a school. And I was telling them about social media and how there is a social media policy. There is a student handbook. And they were like, what? We really have a student handbook? I know they went over that at the beginning of the year. So my suggestion is, can we condense this down to a link or something that could be sent to students and maybe text out. I don't know. But I think what you all have already done, there's really no need to recreate the wheel except for if we see something egregious, which I don't even anticipate. So I'm not mad at the short May 2nd deadline, but I am thinking that we need to do things differently so that they have access to it. I think this is wonderful.
Student
but-
version.
Yes, but only adults are walking around with these in their book bag. They're not
Right.
walking around with those. But if maybe we could come
I
up with
carry mine wherever I go.
if we could come up with something to make it savvy or to maybe highlight something once a month that's in the student code of conduct and maybe direct them to that. I think that it just warrants keeping it in there in the forefront of their mind, what's in there, because I think our administration does a great job at the beginning of the year because that's the time to do it. But then as the year goes on, they forget that we do have policies. And even for the buses is a huge concern for me, and behavior on the buses, that needs to be reminded probably monthly. So I'm just thinking, my suggestion is, can we take this off the paper and make it active?
So Brooke Biding was invited to come to the health and safety meeting today from communications.
Hello.
So I know she is sitting back there
There you go.
taking very good notes about those suggestions. No, those were great.
Thank you. All right. Oh, yes.
And I would just add for Brooke, the biggest thing that I need I think we should get out, and it's just expanding on Dr. K's message there of making this come alive, is the restorative practices
Yes, that
that
was
we're
going to be
using.
one of my edits.
And not only for the students, but for the adults. You
Yes.
cannot restore if you don't have,
Right.
and not have those relationships already in place. So I would just add that.
Thank you for adding that. That was going to be one of my edits.
What?
Edit suggestions. So, yes.
Yeah, Mary.
I have it written down. Do you want me to show you? I just didn't want to, take up too much time. All right, so we are going to move on to other business. We're not changing the subject. We're going to move on. So I know that we have here listed social media policy, but I also had some concerns of something else that I wanted to bring up. I will then come back to I think Dr. Moffitt, you had something, or did you already just mention it right here with the social media?
Sorry, Rob. I just want, with regard to social media, our kids are using TikTok during the school day. They need to be reminded, and other social media, but I know there's bullying going on TikTok. There's threats going on TikTok. We need to emphasize that we do have a policy on social media. And what I told the students is, if you do things in the middle of the school day, there's a time date stamp, and you're telling on yourself. And so don't do it. And we can't control the things outside of the day, but I think that we need to enforce the social media policy and maybe update it and focus on, maybe we need to be on TikTok to say, don't be doing this during the hours of 8 to 3 or whatever, but we need to be a little bit more innovative with our social media rules and presence for them.
Thank you. All right, so my concern that I'm going to bring up is Google Chat. So I have 2 daughters who are CPS students. One of my older student has encountered where there are students who are messaging each other throughout the day, and I wanted to bring this up as a concern because I think especially for elementary children, if this is occurring, there is increasing cyberbullying, harassment, other things. And my concern would be, is there a way that we could possibly eliminate it for students of elementary age? I know that in order to stay in contact with their teachers, you're going to use Schoology, you're going to use PowerSchool, you're going to email. And really, this is a concern for me during the school hours and then even after the school hours. So I just wanted to kind of maybe have some discussion from some other board members and also some of the administration in regards to this particular topic. And we could spend about 2 minutes on it. Google Chat. Yes, it's called Google Chat. So how that works is once you're logged in, the student devices, they're obviously associated with Gmail. They can send messages to all of their friends. They can add it. You can remove yourself, but then someone can add you again, and they can just keep talking all day long. All right. Board member.
As you
It's okay.
But I
I'm
think
open
this
to
is
everything.
a monster of a task
It is.
to
It
try
is.
to monitor and even change. And not saying we can't think about it,
Right.
because I do believe we have to. Personally, I would ban phones from school.
Well, it's not the phones, it's
But
their
guess
devices.
what? We probably have lawsuits and
Right,
everything else.
right.
But I think it's going to be hard because I think there's a lot of value to Google Chat. It's teaching our students how to use it.
It is.
The TikTok stuff, this is the world they live in. And parents know their kids use TikTok. I don't know how many parents, I'm not blaming parents totally, but I think there's some responsibility to try to educate your kids around what's appropriate, what's in schools. School officials, I'm sure, know about it. So the more, I mean, I don't know what you do. I'm at loss for it. I just think it's a monster of a thing for us to take on. And, you know.
I would agree with you on that. It is very large and very big. That's why I kind of suggested possibly starting with the elementary age. I think that for elementary students, I don't really see a reason of why they do need to use Google Chat. Maybe there are some other concerns or reasons to support that. So just wanted to hear, thank you, Interim Ahmad.
We have done a lot of extensive research in this area. I would recommend that Jeremy Gallagher come present at the next Health and Safety. He will have some information, how people are using it across the country. It's pretty much the #1 tool across the country, and educating our staff about it. And Ms. Munty, if you could talk a little bit about Gaggle, because it actually has saved lives.
Oh, okay. I would see that's what I want to know. So that's why I wanted to bring this up.
So there's another reason that our online platforms are just really critically important. And for our audience who's watching today, we use something called Gaggle Alerts. And it is a third-party vendor software system that looks for certain key phrases from our students. It's monitored by our school social workers and IT teams and psychs and counselors 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So we actually have staff members who monitor that during all of our vacations, looking from, or they receive the alerts from Gaggle, and then we send, depending on what those alerts are, police out to homes to do wellness checks. And those come in the middle of the night, often during weekends and during holidays. Particularly our really difficult times are right now as we begin to close schools and prepare for the end of the school year. May is a really challenging month for us, as is December, right before the winter break. So we know that this software has saved lives for our students. We, every year, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the students are using that Google Chat or other pieces of software that the district owns to talk with their friends about incredibly difficult subjects. And so because we have access to those systems and we can backdoor it, if you will, we are able to determine what they're talking about and be able to get them the assistance that they need.
Do we have any data on this in terms of numbers?
Sure. Yes, I can bring it for you. Yes.
That would be great.
Ban
phones, okay.
So, I just want to add that I think that the key is to where they are rather than to eliminate. So I'm so happy to learn that we have people that are monitoring that, because I think that we need to be in their space and give them the false sense of security that it's completely private, you know, but that so that we can hear what they hear and see what they see. I also, I just think we have the procedures in place. We just need to enforce the rules. And the rules are that if you threaten someone on a TikTok or a Facebook, they're all the same, and there are consequences to that. And so I think that's what we need to just enforce. I'm not for banning phones. I'm not that bad, but I am for enforcing the rules. And I think that we just need to increase our presence where they are.
Well, thank you. We have had a productive meeting so far. So we are now, before, I guess I should ask, do we have anything else? Anyone? Okay. We're on our agenda for hearing of the public. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes Do we have anyone who is on today?
We do, Madam Chair.
Okay.
We have three. Our first speaker will be Abria Drummonds,
Okay.
followed by if Lindsay and David accept the invitation. So David and Lindsay, please accept the invitation. Abria, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
I can't hear
Abria,
you.
you have to unmute your microphone.
You have to unmute for us.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I was jumping on specifically to join the discussion about the Google chat. I personally am one of those parents who think it should definitely just be disabled, only because during the school, at least during the school day, maybe at least during the school day, so that children aren't during class times going back and forth with each other, creating, this atmosphere that they're dealing with, during passing of classes or out on the playgrounds or something else like that. We all know that children can be extremely innovative in terms of how they communicate. So I do understand that there are people who are monitoring these, but as innovative, as quickly as they come up with new techniques, we also have to be aware of that. And sometimes I feel like it would be counterproductive. We're chasing the situation, especially if we're going to deal with discipline and everything proactively. I think proactively remove some of the things that are creating certain situations like Google Chat. I think the fewer opportunities that students have to engage with each other negatively. I do understand there's some positives, but I sometimes feel the negative outweighs that. And I feel like the less opportunities we give them to have that engagement is better. Just in certain, so my child is in elementary as well. So I don't see the need for that chat option to be available at this level. So I would just move, or I can't move because I'm not a board member, but I would be in favor of disabling the Google chat, specifically during daytime if possible, and after hours as well too. I, for one, if my children want to communicate, I prefer them to go through me and reach out to their other parents and stuff like that instead of having a CPS issued device.
Thank you, Ms. Drummonds.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lindsay, please go ahead. Lindsay Feldor.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Felder, a parent of 3 CPS students at Pleasant Ridge Montessori. Today I'm here to make you aware of a critical pedestrian and traffic safety concern surrounding our school. As we are a neighborhood school, the majority of our students walk or are dropped off by their parents, and with limited parking on school property, many of our over 700 students and 100 staff have to cross Montgomery Road at a busy intersection multiple times a day. A PRM staff member was hit at this intersection in October, requiring a hospital visit. And my son and I also had a near miss last year, which was pretty terrifying. Thus, we are requesting interventions to make this area safer. We've asked DOTE to introduce a pedestrian scramble, which would make crossing safer and decrease traffic backups, which are both a concern. The city has not yet agreed to this change, so we need CPS advocacy to get this change to happen before the start of the next school year. We also want school zone signs to be flashing all day and add permanent speed monitoring due to the school building's close proximity to a major roadway. Third, we request the school zone signs be moved farther back to allow for more advanced warning that drivers are entering a school zone. They currently sit at the entrance and exit of the driveway. Fourth, we want CPS to provide additional police officer presence because currently PRM staff enters traffic on Montgomery Road to direct the entrance and exit of car lines so people can get in and out. Thank you for your time and the chance to share our concerns. I certainly hope we can work together to make these changes quickly before someone else is hurt or even worse. I'm happy to discuss with the board, any board members at any time in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Next up is Leslie Mooney, followed by David Werner. Leslie, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Yeah, I just like Abria. I think we're both Fairview parents and members of the LSCMC there, and this has become a hot topic in terms of Google Chat, and specifically, as Abria mentioned, the use of said chat during the school day while kids are in class. It's definitely presented discipline problems for our teachers and our administrators, but I think more importantly to me personally, this feels like one of those very unfortunate side effects of the pandemic where we as parents had worked really diligently to not have iPads or iPhones or that kind of thing and social media access for our children, elementary aged. All three of mine are at Fairview. And then because they were issued because of necessity, right? A school issued personal laptop or iPad that came equipped with Google Chat and other social media and interactive connectivity apps and that kind of thing. It has resulted then in sort of the parents not being sort of no agency there in being able to, allow our children to have social media access or not. As far as what the administration's talking about with Gaggle, totally can see the benefits there. I do wonder about what happened prior to COVID when elementary students did not have, CPS issued devices and therefore did not have access to Google Chat, at least not on the weekends and in the evenings, in the times when they're talking about are the highest incidence of Gaggle reports. So I'm interested to join the meeting next month, hear what the, administration's report is about. But I will say from a parent's perspective, for elementary students, I think Google Chat is not necessary or warranted, and in some cases can be very harmful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is David Werner. Please go ahead.
I think we have something a little wrong with your audio.
Try to mute and unmute
Yes.
your mic, David.
Still sound like a chipmunk. What do you suggest?
You would have to connect and reconnect probably to fix it at this time, Madam Chair, which would.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Could he type it into the chat, or did he already?
Yes, and he was actually he did mention that he was checking in about the Pleasant Ridge traffic as well.
Okay.
Traffic situation.
Okay.
But I have a
So
question.
what's his name? And maybe somebody can give him a call.
Right.
David Warner,
David
and
Warner.
I will send him a message with the board office's phone number.
But I have a question.
Yes.
Can Google Chat be disabled per user?
I don't think so.
That is a Jeremy Gollahue question.
Okay, because what I'm thinking is I really value the life-saving benefits. And unfortunately, that we're in a time of technology. But I'm wondering if parents can have the option to disable that function per device, and then their kids just won't experience that part. They can do everything else but the Google Chat. And I know that you can disable certain parts of Google. So maybe that's just something that we could also look at. Maybe we can have Jeremy at the next meeting talk about some options for parents. Rather than disable it for all elementary, we can just do it for parents that like to opt out.
Okay. And before we come to a close, Connie, you really don't have to give a full report. You can just let us know that you've provided us with that particular information.
One of the concerns. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One of the concerns is about Pleasant Ridge Montessori. And I just wanted to mention that I received an email that was that the concerns at Pleasant Ridge, along with Schroeder, along with SDPA, several were brought to the attention of John Brazina. He's the director of the Cincinnati Transportation and Engineering Department. The email came from Vice Mayor Jan Michelle Kearney, and Mr. Brazina is having his team evaluate the issue. I reached out to our contact, Ms. McVeigh, and she's supposed to be getting back with me on where they are with those.
Thank you so much. Having no other business, do we have any assignments or anything? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I would like to really quick, thank you for that reminder, thank our interim, Tiane Amat, for being such a great person here with obviously our committee and being here for health and safety. Just wanted to thank you for all of your service and participation, and we thank you. Let's give her a round of applause.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I think that we are all done. Again, this has been a great meeting. I want to just thank everyone for joining us, and the meeting is adjourned.